Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Nadex Morning Analysis, where we look at hotspots in the markets for the day. It is September 30th, Thursday, September 30th. Before Brian, my name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me is Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Before Brian and I jump into the couple of hotspots we're seeing in the markets this morning, we do need to share this disclaimer that trading on Nadex involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And lastly, this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So, what are we seeing as hotspots in the markets for today? And well, one, the initial jobless claims came out this week. They came in worse than expected. We're seeing more people looking for some assistance, meaning the recovery is slowing down a little bit. So we've got to keep our eye on that. Meanwhile, what we're seeing is oil selling off yet again. Oil has been a very hot spot in the markets. We've been seeing a lot of volatility, creating quite a bit of trading opportunities. We're going to go to the charts and take a look at oil. We're also going to take a look at nat gas. While oil's going down, of course, we're going into uh, what is supposed to be colder winter months eventually, and nat gas is, unfortunately for Bryant, up again. And the other thing we're going to take a look at is we were talking about yesterday. We were watching that pound trade, and we are seeing the pound finally roll over. We were kind of saying keep an eye on that. The pound was getting weak, 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 weak. We're seeing it come back finally a little bit of strength in the pound. So with that, Brian, I'm going to flip it over to you, and we'll talk about the energies, and we'll talk about the pound, and then we'll get at it.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, we're seeing a little bit of a flip, and that's kind of in the currency realm. That's more or less the only thing that we're seeing right now. We're seeing dollar strength, but we are seeing pound strength. Pound strength at the same time. You see the pound dollar is more or less flat. It's winning. The pound is winning that kind of contest a little bit, but euro dollar down 62. You're seeing the euro, the dollar yen, dollar Swiss, dollar CAD all up in the green. Aussie dollar is more or less flat. And then euro pound down 49, and again that's over one daily ATR. So that's a big movement for that pair as well. And then pound yen up 58. So you're seeing basically a reversal of what we saw for the last 2 days. As Todd mentioned, the data that we got this morning is kind of mixed. 262, it's interesting. Whenever we miss to the top side, it always comes at that like 360-ish mark. Don't know why, what's special about 360. I'm sure there's something, but there's something around that 360 mark. So while it's negative news there that more people are looking for, unemployment assistance, the final GDP number came in actually higher than expected. So on a quarterly basis. So the economy's working. GDP is going up, right? Where it's producing 6.6% is a great GDP on a quarterly figure. So it's kind of a washout as far as U.S. news goes for the open today. But overall, I would say it's probably going to be more on the positive side. Everything is in the green right now. It should most likely stay like that, except at 10 o'clock is where we could see a little bit of a hiccup. Now, Chicago PMI at 945. That could be something that kind of rattles the market just slightly. It's expected to be well above the 50 mark, but again, PMI is a number that people look for. It may give us a little bit of trading opportunity in gold or silver, but I feel like because it is in such close proximity to Powell speaking again, and it's Powell and Williams, and they're on basically a board, right? It is they're set to testify with U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen about the coronavirus and CARES Act before the Committee on Financial Services, House of Representatives. So it's like a
Get
pack
ready
of
for some
wolves.
fireworks.
Yeah, there's two. There's a lamb, a scapegoat, and a bunch of wolves and a couple sharks. So that's what's going to happen. I'm sure there's going to be some very pointed, vocal, blaming statements out there. But again, we'll see how hard the testimony is. Whether there'll be any kind of, I mean, you see at the bottom it says, "Why do traders care?" As the head of the central bank, which controls short-term interest rates, he has more influence over the nation's currency value than any other person. So yeah, it's kind of a big thing. And remember, earlier this week, Senator Warren laid into him about how horrible of a person he is. Remember what happened when Trump did kind of something similar before. So it's interesting that Trump and Warren are on the same team at this point. But don't think they like each other, but they're basically both like,
But
no,
they
no, he's
agree
bad.
to not like Jay Powell.
Yeah, it's like the friend. What is it? Is it the
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 friend,
the
the
enemy
enemy of my
of your
enemy.
enemy is your friend? I think is what it is, right? Right. So it's just one of those things. I mean, especially in the House of Representatives, it's very cutthroat. Everybody has to, there's a lot of elections. There are a lot of people coming up in extremely close, um, kind of battleground areas. So they need to make a name. And the way to do that is to find someone and just attack them. And we could see that today. So, the last time that happened, Powell basically stood up to Trump and says, "No, you guys, you don't control us. We're going to do what we see fit." And if he gets very strong like that, I think the market will react very well, meaning that he is still in charge versus kind of following what he's been told to follow. So the market, recessions, interest rates, tapering, all of these are very important things, especially with elections coming up. So again, we'll see what he has to say today.
Yeah, get your popcorn and get ready for for the fun. So yeah, let's jump into some of these charts. Let's take a look at what's going on in these energies.
Yeah, I just saw this. German inflation expected I just saw this. It just popped out a second ago. The inflation rate in Germany is expected to be 4.1% in September, but transitory. All right, so you wanted to go into oil. So yeah, so oil. Yesterday we had a nice little pop off. For those of you who knew the strategy yesterday, it was a nice little pop to the downside immediately, and it jumped about 30, 40 cents, and then prices took off. And oil, there was actually a surplus yesterday, so it was kind of interesting. Where it was expected to be -2, and it came in at 4. Got a lot of oil. It's kind of like
so the prices got to go up.
Exactly. Right. It is down
that
now.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, and again, this is the gut reaction, guys. You see this and you're like, oh, we got so much prices going down. And everybody sees that number, knows that it misses, and then starts selling it. And then we see price skyrocket higher. So again, it's about kind of getting in there, taking advantage of the move out there, and then figuring out where to play the reverse. And again, it was a parabolic move up and it retraced back. It basically closed yesterday exactly, at the end of the actual oil session, it closed exactly where it was at the European session. Didn't do much. And then we little kind of pop back and forth. And again, the European session got a little pop. It literally sent it straight back down into that same area of buyers at 73.96. So we still have a level down here at 73.29. Technically, if the reason why natural gas is going up is because it's going to be cold, the same typically goes true for oil as well.
Because it's right, because you got heating oil in there as
well. There's a component of it, of heating oil, and heating oil is typically very expensive. There's not many people that use it, but it's still used on a residential basis. And it's typically like those systems are old and inefficient. Natural gas are newer technology and much higher efficiency. So, typically, if that was the reason, if that was the true reason it's going to be cold, guess what? This should have been going up as well, even if there's extra supply of it. Because again, remember, it's kind of
maybe they just know that you need it, so they're just going to run up the price in that gas for you.
Yeah, I need propane, not natural gas. But
yeah,
like
just funnier the other way.
And here's the thing, go team, go team, climate change. While you're jacking the prices of oil and, kind of messing with gas, at the same time, there are other nations that are like, hey, natural gas is so expensive, we're going with the cheapest alternative, coal. That's not really the best thing.
No, that's even the right.
and that's what's happening. You mess with inflation, you mess with inflation on energy products, and then you have something like this, where again, we have a point where we could potentially roll, but then we have natural gas, which we have enormous amounts of. There's no supply shortages whatsoever. Yesterday, you can see it took a little hiccup off that, this little tiny zone as well as the 50. It didn't hold. It actually gave us a Harry Potter to the downside. So I'll remove this so you guys can actually see it. Here was your kind of basing at this level. There was your, actually, let's get to see. The basing is right in there, right there. And you can see it pulled back and just gave us a little Harry Potter before going higher again. And then most of this is really, the European Open happens right here, right there. So a little bit of movement up and a little push down. You can see that this is where sellers came in before this level of basing and then nice push. And that's kind of what it bounced off of at 8 o'clock today. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things, like the way that it's looking, it bounced off of a decent level. It should go back to the downside. The GDP number is good. The unemployment is not necessarily good, although it doesn't have as much over here. Remember that we do have the natural gas oil, oil inventory. The natural gas inventory report is today at 10:30 this morning. So we'll see what the levels look like. It's not in millions of barrels. It's in like billions of cubic. What is it? What do we figure out?
Millions of British thermal units.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, it's measured in thermal units. Yep. So it's a little bit different, but the inventory is today. So if there's a build or a surplus of over what the expectation is, it's definitely in a position where it could drop lower. For it to break higher for that inventory report, and remember, trade it the same exact way that you trade oil. It's got to break through, and I'll move this out of the way here. Okay, you can see that we have basically sellers sitting in this area right here. We have sellers sitting in an area right above it as well. And then if we can pop all the way back up again, we had those sellers sitting right up top. So it's got a little bit to chunk through on the downside. We really don't necessarily have any buyers until basically this level. So, we're at 566 right now. It looks like we could potentially get down to 537 today, and that's a decent run in natural gas. But again, short duration contracts. Look at the oil inventory report. Started at 10 o'clock and kind of roll through from there.
Hey, hang on one second, real quickly, because I just did a very, very quick peek at the Fibonacci retracement levels, and the levels that you were drawing off. Actually, oddly enough, they're sort of hitting all of these levels. It's bouncing between that 38 and 23. But if it were to punch a little higher and get through that 38 level, you see those sellers coming in at the 50 level, and then again up at the 62 level. Which are it's interesting when the levels that you're drawing match with the Fibonacci levels as well. So it just again, it just adds to your analysis. So if where you might see sellers, if we do see it pop up, you might a couple of places where you might see sellers above as it moves around. So you can use those tools on the Nadex platform.
Yep.
All right.
Next thing,
so for the last thing today, let's if you're done with the energies, I think it'd be good to talk about the pound, just around the horn on all three of those, because it did finally roll.
Yeah, I mean, I think pound dollar, we had a setup there that we were looking for bouncing off of a 4-hour level. We missed it by a little bit, and it kind of came down to that 10-3 time frame. It just really started basing through. And if you remember what I was saying, I was really looking for that kind of basing at the bottom, and then I was going to look for a pullback, right? That this was a decent level. I like the level, but I really needed to see some type of the pain is done, right? The way you do that is you see that it basically come down base sideways and then start to pull away from the area. And when you start to pull away, that's kind of where the whole Harry Potter come from, right? The lightning bolt, right? The push away, the pull back, and then the continuation in the same pattern. That's kind of what we saw. So the trade that we set up here, again, we were looking for it to come all the way back up to that level. If I remove that, you can kind of see that yesterday, between like 1 and about 5 in the afternoon, you can see that we really kind of had that level of basing. It wasn't really going lower, and we really weren't getting the explosion to the downside. And then last night at about 10 o'clock, we finally started to break out, and we put a green, red, green in. Remember we talk about color changes? We painted a green, red, green, and then another one, and then another one, which says, hey, listen, this could be the bottom. We can use that as a reduced level of risk. Go in there and take it. And then magically, price, even though it was higher, it pulled right back at the open right at 3 o'clock and gave us that same position. So again, we were looking long, and here is, let's see, 1 to 3 is right there. Okay. Actually, that's 3.4. So it ended up going beyond it. But this is what we were talking about, the reversals of why we were looking for them. We knew we were in the right proximity. And again, the reason I'm pointing this out is because in this area where we had the base just after it is when the Nadex contract stopped and reprinted for the day. So you had some opportunity to look for an overnight trade if price pulled back there. It could have been a pretty decent setup for you. Again, using it on shorter durations. If you would have used even the 7 o'clock this morning, I guess 7 o'clock would have been a little bit higher, but you had the ability to do a couple different trade setups in here, and it was a nice mover. It moved about 40 something pips off of it. So, but again, another nice little trade right at the open. Dollar yen again pulling back up again, kind of gave us the
Pound
same.
yen.
Yeah, this is pound yen. Yep, gave us the same type of kind of bounce.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But not as clean. And again, it's basically the same trade, but again, not as clean here versus the yen. And then euro pound did the same exact thing. I got to move it because the watermark. Hey guys, let us know if you like the watermark. I know some of you have asked for it. For me, it's distracting.
You know what? If you guys wanted to chime in, I know it messes Brian up because he doesn't like to see that watermark.
Because it's like because I'm looking at the candle formation and now it's like over the candles and I'm like, wait, I gotta so if I move it around.
But a lot of people like to be able to see what exact chart, and then when Brian's changing his times on there, it tells you is it a 15 minute, is it a 30 minute? So yeah, please feel free to type in if your vote
we put it over here. Like I want it like give me the time, but like put it here. Like, leave it in the attached. Like that would be, all you programmers out there, design a platform like this that's online that I can move this around. Be much better for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, same setup. We were looking for the top. We did get a little bit of a top in, but then all of a sudden when we look across and we analyze the candles, you can see right here at 4 o'clock yesterday, we had a level of basing. We had the lower candles here, right? The lower wicks. It pulled back and touched, and then pulled back and touched again. It's like, there may be something at that level. Well, guess what? Price came right up to that level at the European Open and then gave us this big drop to the downside, right? And again, also a nice runner, also beyond a 1 to 3, actually went all the way to a 1 to 5. A decent run to the downside. But same thing, session opens are amazing. Look for basing, look for price movement off of there. Again, this was a base, 2 touches, hit it, and then boom, dropped. What's the total on this one? About another 50 pips. So again, that's the ATR of this one is around 45. So for a day, and it moved over 50 pips just from the European Open till now. So great opportunity. The pound has rolled. I would look to see there's a little bit of a hiccup, but again, this one could potentially come all the way back down to that 85 mark, at least 85.30ish. We're right around the 86.03 mark right now. So I think it does have some more room to run. We need some more data, obviously, for this week. We're not going to get any more today, but tomorrow we have some European data coming in.
So
and,
yeah. So
tomorrow,
be back tomorrow
morning
morning when we can take we can run through all of that.
Yep.
On our it'll be Friday, and it'll be October.
I know, right? And we do have, and don't forget, guys, tomorrow morning we have core PCE price index, which is what you and I are paying for goods and services, as well as CAD GDP month over month.
Let me guess, I'm paying more. It'll be
it's not transitory yet, Todd. It's not transitory.
There's that transitory word. All right. Well, with that, if you got any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. Any questions for Brian, please email Brian at support@keeptradingsimple.com. Again, a quick recap of what we went over today. We do have some interesting testimony later this morning, but what we did see already are some not terrific, not horrible, but not terrific initial jobless claims numbers. The recovery struggling a little bit. We're seeing oil lower, oil volatility staying in the markets. Nat gas is creeping higher. Not sure why, but it is. So there's definitely some volatility there. And the pound, that weakness that we've been seeing in the pound, finally rolling over a bit. We knew that it was going to stabilize somewhere. So we've seen the pound do a little bit of a retracement. Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning. With that, good luck in the markets, everyone. We will catch you later.